Good morning. Really good to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Inbar Preiss. I'm a reporter, a regulatory correspondent for DL News. I'm based in Brussels, and it's a pleasure to be here in Paris today, especially with the crypto scene buzzing. I've never seen Paris like this in terms of crypto, so that's really exciting. We had a short introduction, but we're joined by very special guests on this panel. First of all, we have Paul Midy, who is Deputy of Paris, a Member of Parliament, and he's also co-founder of think tank Paris Digital. We have Stéphanie Cabossioras, Executive Director of Binance France. We have Patrick Hansen, Director of EU Policy and Strategy at Circle, and of course, Laszlo Szabo, CEO of Kiln. So thank you so much for joining us. Maybe we can start with you, Paul. You've recently published a report that shows the funding landscape of France. I think France, in terms of Europe, maybe is leading the way, but in terms of global, the global dynamics of funding in this sector, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and the results of your recent report.
Yes, thanks a lot. So first of all, I'm very happy to be here, and thanks to the Adan for organizing this day today. If you don't mind, I will answer you in French because I think there is a caption that I should do in French. So I will switch to French and hopefully I don't know if there is a live translation, but sorry for the non-French speakers if there is not. Oui, effectivement, tu poses un très bon point parce qu'il faut revenir aux faits. D'abord, on a effectivement, si on regarde l'investissement dans nos startups et nos PME innovantes en France, on a un gap qui est très important avec par exemple le système américain ou le système anglais. La grosse différence, c'est qu'en France, on n'a pas de fonds de pension. Donc on est très attaché à notre système de retraite par répartition, qui a été réformé récemment, avec parfois un peu de difficultés. On n'a pas l'intention de le changer, mais il faut avoir en tête que ça crée une très grosse différence dans notre capacité de financement, de notre innovation et de nos startups. Je vous donne juste quelques chiffres. L'épargne privée en France est 5 000 milliards. Si on mettait tout le système de retraite dans des fonds de pension, ça serait 10 000 milliards d'investissements qui seraient possibles grâce à ça. Donc on ferait x3 grâce à ça. Donc ça montre aussi qu'à l'inverse, quand on n'a pas ça, on a un gap extrêmement important avec les pays qui ont, eux, un système de retraite par capitalisation et donc qui financent grâce à ça leurs startups et leur innovation. Donc ça ne veut pas dire qu'on ne peut pas faire beaucoup de choses. Alors si on regarde, alors évidemment, les États-Unis, il faut comparer les chiffres vis-à-vis de l'Europe. Mais si on regarde la France et qu'on la compare au Royaume-Uni, l'année dernière, nos startups, elles ont levé à peu près 13,5 milliards d'euros. Ça a été une très belle trajectoire depuis 10 ans. C'est l'année record. On est passé au-dessus des Allemands. On est premier d'Europe continentale, mais on est encore très loin des Anglais qui ont levé 27 milliards, 2 fois plus l'année dernière. Donc ce gap, il faut qu'on arrive à le combler. Il faut qu'on soit meilleur que les autres pays, à la fois sur le financement public et puis sur la mobilisation de l'épargne. Sur le financement public, on a BPI France, on a France 2030. On n'est pas trop mauvais sur le sujet, mais évidemment, c'est qu'une petite partie. Il faut qu'on arrive à mobiliser beaucoup plus l'épargne. Et donc là, il y a 2 initiatives qui ont été mises en place par le président de la République. C'est l'initiative Tibi, que je pense vous connaissez, qui est comment on demande aux assureurs qui gèrent une grosse partie de l'épargne en France de s'engager sur des investissements dans les fonds qui investissent dans nos startups. Donc il y a eu Tibi 1, 6 milliards, Tibi 2, 7 milliards annoncés par le président Agivatech et c'est en cours. Et puis la deuxième initiative, c'est effectivement la mission que j'ai conduite auprès du gouvernement ces derniers mois, avec l'idée d'aller mettre en place des mesures techniques pour mobiliser cette épargne. Alors je ne rentre pas dans tout le détail du rapport parce que j'ai déjà été trop long et je vais laisser la parole à mes petits camarades. Mais il y a 3 types de mesures où on peut aller chercher jusqu'à 3 milliards d'euros supplémentaires de financement pour nos startups, nos PME innovantes chaque année. Et créer par là même d'ailleurs 200 000 emplois dans les 4-5 prochaines années. C'est une mesure dite jeunes entreprises qui repart de JEI, jeunes entreprises innovantes, mais en allant beaucoup plus loin et en donnant des incitations fiscales aux particuliers pour qu'ils investissent dans nos startups. Ça, c'est ce qu'a annoncé le président à Vivatech. Et donc, il faut qu'on mette en place à l'occasion du projet de loi de finances à la fin de l'année. 2, c'est comment on mobilise mieux nos grandes entreprises et nos acteurs institutionnels. Et notamment, c'est comment on s'assure que nos grands groupes en France, on a 300 grands groupes, il y en a 40 qui ont des fonds de corporate venture. Comment on fait en sorte qu'il y en ait pas 40, mais 50, 60, 70, 80, parce que ça, c'est des milliards en plus pour nos startups et pour l'innovation. Et puis le troisième bloc de mesures, je ne rentre pas dans le détail, ça, c'est des mesures très techniques de fléchage de l'épargne. C'est comment on s'assure, pas en demandant aux assureurs de ce comité de prendre des engagements, mais parce qu'on va changer la réglementation, on va faciliter pour les assureurs, pour tous ceux qui gèrent les fonds, notamment les PER, les plans épargne retraite, de mettre beaucoup plus d'argent dans toute la partie non cotée et en particulier les PME, les ETI. Voilà, donc il y a beaucoup de choses à faire. On peut avancer par rapport à la situation dans laquelle on est, mais par contre, pour réussir à closer le gap vis-à-vis des Anglais ou des Américains, le chemin est assez long. Et en tout cas, pour le closer vis-à-vis américain, il faut qu'on travaille en européen. Ça, c'est certain. Voilà. Pardon, j'ai été un peu long, mais voilà, c'est les petits messages que je voulais passer.
Merci beaucoup. And mon français is so if I don't have intelligent follow-up questions to that, you'll have to forgive me. But Laszlo, I think you've had some experience in the French startup scene. What have your experiences been like in the past few years?
Yeah, very good. I mean, the French ecosystem, I launched my first startup in 2015 in the south of France, and then came in Paris 2017-18, and I was hosted at Station F with 1,000 other startups. And yeah, I've seen the ecosystem growing more and more. There's a lot of scale-ups now. It's easy to recruit. Obviously, in crypto, in blockchains, the AMF has been just amazing as a regulator compared to other regulators in the world. We could come back to that. And yeah, I'm just so proud to see so many other startups building in the space. It's ETHCC week, right? Ethereum Community Conference. I'm going to a lot of conferences around the world, and I can tell you, like, this ecosystem is one of the best, if not the best in the world. And yeah, I would say last but not least, seeing large companies like Binance, Crypto.com, or OKX moving into Paris and starting their headquarters in Paris versus any other places in Europe. This is just like very, very exciting, and that maybe wouldn't happen 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but it's happening now. So yeah, I'm only again very excited about the Parisian and French ecosystem right now.
And so you touched upon comparing to other regulations or other jurisdictions. I'd be glad to hear a little bit more details. And when you say, Paris or France is the best, what does that mean? Well, best in terms of support, in terms of funding, in terms of, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, so first we have amazing engineers. It's in our culture. We have good schools, good engineering schools, and it's easy to recruit, right? Like if you recruit a developer in the US, it will cost you 2-3 times the price, and I can tell you, often it will worth like 2-3 times the level of an engineer you would find in France. So very good engineers. Yeah, we're good in math and finance. Obviously, there's a lot of good use case now in DeFi or big part of the crypto ecosystem. We're very creative as well. So it's like we're good in NFTs, or there's this huge kind of NFT ecosystem here. But funding could be, we could be better on that front. Obviously, there's more money being invested in the UK. There's much more money being invested in the US. Still, the best VC in the space are not in France. It's a regret to say that, but that's true. And but I'm convinced that kind of state initiatives or private initiatives coming in France will make it work. And AMF, why it's a good regulator? Because you ask for a meeting, you get a meeting. and you can talk to them. You know, it's less the case in UK, for example, with the FCA, and obviously, you know, in the like in the US with the SEC, I don't know anyone that had met Gary Gensler for a meeting. So you tell me if you do.
I will definitely let you know. No, that's definitely interesting. And of course, you mentioned Binance France, or Binance was one of the first, you know, major international crypto companies to register here in France. So Stephanie, I was wondering if you could maybe tell us, you know, what's the advantage of coming here and what coaxed Binance to come here and set foot in Paris, of all places?
Yes, alors, Binance, as you mentioned, was the first big international crypto exchange to be registered as a VASP in France. And following Binance, so it was registered, Binance France was registered last May, in May 2022. Following that, a lot of other big international players came to France. We mentioned Crypto.com, Circle, OKX, etc. So it's very good because when we speak about funding, it's the beginning of a spillover effect to create a strong ecosystem with an international scope. This is really the objective of everything that is done by the French ecosystem. Because crypto is not a state technology, it's not a national technology, it's not a regional technology, but all the projects need to be worldwide. And when you build an ecosystem, it needs to be worldwide. So I'm very happy that France is being on the verge of building that. So the reason why Binance came in France, it was even 2 years ago, it's for 2 reasons. The first reason is because of the clarity of the regulatory landscape. It's something that I learned joining the crypto industry. For crypto projects, what is important, it's not the level of requirements, of demandings from a regulatory point of view, it's the clarity. So the fact that France was able to have a clear legal framework from 2019 in the Pact Law with the VASP regime was really the beginning of this ecosystem. And now, 2 or 3 years after that, we have the same regulatory landscape, and France was able to export it at the European level, because the MiCA regulation is basically more or less the same requirements than France. So for French players and for firms that came to France, it's a strong asset, because at least for 5-10 years, you have the same regulatory requirements. The consequence is that when you invest money to be compliant with the regulatory landscape, it's good because you invest it in a long term. You invest it with people, because we hire people locally with the local knowledge. You're investing because you are hiring basically law consultants to help you build the applications, etc. You are also hiring local consulting firms, and you are also developing partnerships with local players for providing services or technical tools, etc. So all of these investments need to be in the long term, and you need this regulatory stability. So this was the first reason for Binance coming to France. And the second one, I think, is the quality of the people, as Laszlo mentioned. When you want to hire people that know the blockchain industry, who know and also the financial and regulatory requirements, you have a lot of very skilled people in France.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe for Binance France specifically now, there's been a bit of a challenge with an investigation going on into Binance France over the past, looking back at the past years and the activities. So I was wondering, is there any reason to be afraid that Binance might leave France now following, the regulatory trends happening with Binance around the world?
No, there's no reason, because it's the second step and the second necessary step of regulation. First step is you enact a law. So there are requirements, there is usually a status with an authorization, voilà, and the application, the registration. Second step, the actors, the players need to implement the obligations. And the third step is control. So it's the same for all the financial sector. And it's totally normal. What is a little bit different for crypto is that it's new. So all these players that were created 3, 4, 5 years ago is the first time that they experience in live regulation. For traditional financial institutions, asset management companies, banks, financial institutions, it's day-to-day life. So voilà, I think it will become day-to-day life, but in the meantime, voilà, there are a little bit of surprises because it's the first time we experience it.
I see. So people can stay confident that Binance France is staying staying in Paris.
Totally.
I see. Because yeah, there's been these deregistrations around in other countries as well, like in the Netherlands and so on. So that's unlikely to happen here.
Totally unlikely.
All right. And Patrick, you've also been with Circle now, and Circle has successfully registered in France. So what was the thought process there about, we'll soon wrap up our, rant about France. So what was your process in coming to France and moving to Paris?
Yeah, first of all, very happy to be here today. Thanks to Adan for the invitation, and congrats, by the way, to Adan for all the great work being done here in France. I think what's happening here this week is also thanks to players like Adan and others. It's the amount of energy with ECC and other conferences like this one is palpable, and I think the momentum is real. So just today, I think as we speak, there are probably 20 different events happening in parallel here, with a community of thousands of people that are excited about this industry. And so congrats to everyone involved here. And it's not easy for me to say as a German, but the momentum in France is real. But to your question, Inbar, yeah, actually just one tiny correction. We have applied for the licenses here in France, for the DASP license and also for the e-money license. We haven't successfully received the approval yet, but we have just filed the applications in March. We announced it back here in Paris at our Circle Forum here in Paris at Place Vendôme in March during Paris Blockchain Week. Essentially, I just can't double down on what's been said so far. It's not by coincidence that we chose France as our European headquarter. I think the regulatory clarity that Stéphanie has mentioned is obvious. I think there's a great match between the Pact law and the MiCA regulation that has been adopted at the EU level. The amount of talent, the engineering landscape here is great. The industry, events, the community that is living here or even coming here for these types of events is great. So it was an easy choice for us here to come to France.
Perfect. And yeah, thanks for that correction. Maybe to stick with you, Patrick, and to move on to the more tokenization part of the discussion. Of course, you deal with stablecoins every day. What is the long-term impact of stablecoins, tokenized financial instruments, all these new technologies in the finance sector? How do you see that long-term impact in the sector and more broadly?
Yeah, so I try to encourage people always to look at stablecoins or payment stablecoins or e-money tokens, how they're called legally in the European Union, to look at those instruments not only as a new type of monetary asset that is built on a different technology, but also as a platform, as a protocol for that type of money on the internet. And I think the long-term impact of that is just that we will be able to upgrade these assets and all the financial services that are based on these assets to the internet. Because today we can send emails across the world, across different email providers, and that's natural to us. But as soon as we start dealing with money, we are still stuck in these legacy systems that are most of the time, they're limited by either institutions or by jurisdictions. So I think that, as we upgrade those instruments and those services to blockchain-based internet services, I think we will just be able to experience a level of financial services that is as frictionless and as seamless as, sending emails across the world is today. And so I really encourage people to think of stablecoins, for example, as a protocol for money on the internet. And everyone in the world, like developers here in France and Paris, for example, if they want to build financial services on top of that, they don't need our permission at Circle, for example. They can just, develop applications that might be lending applications, that might be the streamlining of payments applications on the internet, tapping into that protocol for money. And I think the impact of that will be massive, obviously.
And maybe back to you, Paul. How do you see, the next 5 years in this sector? How will payments and the tokenized payments be able to contribute to maybe the kinds of facts that you have found in your report and so on?
Oui, je pense que l'industrie en général dont on parle, des cryptoactifs et de la blockchain, elle a un potentiel disruptif absolument énorme sur tout un tas de secteurs, sur la propriété, sur les contrats, sur les transferts d'argent, sur l'identité numérique. Je pense qu'on est au tout début de l'histoire. Alors beaucoup a déjà été fait, hein, c'est pas pour minimiser ce que vous faites, mais on est au tout début de l'histoire. Ça reste encore tout petit par rapport à tous nos marchés, notre industrie, le commerce. Mais il y a un potentiel d'innovation qui est absolument gigantesque. Et donc on veut en tout cas, nous, en France, accompagner cette innovation et être le hub européen en France pour toute cette industrie-là. Mais il faut voir qu'on est au tout début. Donc on a mis en place un nombre de réglementations avec parfois un peu d'avance en France, mais il faut qu'on aille beaucoup plus loin. On est sur un chemin qui va être très long et qu'il faut qu'on accompagne. Donc on est au début de l'histoire, mais on est très très positif sur ce sujet et on a envie que ça se développe fort et que ça avance le plus vite possible. Après, il faut réussir à bien l'accompagner. Donc je mentionne peut-être 2 mesures et 2 sujets qu'on a discutés dans le cadre de ma mission. Le premier, c'est qu'il ne faut pas tuer l'innovation dans l'œuf. Et donc on a par exemple un sujet, et pardon de revenir à des choses un peu techniques, mais en France, il y a le système des JEI, Jeunes Entreprises Innovantes. C'est une façon d'aider, d'accompagner nos jeunes entreprises innovantes, mais il y a beaucoup trop de boîtes de la crypto qui n'arrivent pas à être JEI. Donc première mesure qui est proposée dans le rapport, c'est d'élargir le périmètre de définition des JEI pour que les entreprises de cryptoactifs soient évidemment des JEI. Je veux dire, les sujets n'existaient pas encore il y a quelques années, c'est forcément de l'innovation et on a besoin, nous, d'être aussi d'ailleurs souverains sur ces innovations et puis ces innovations qui vont créer beaucoup d'emplois. Donc ça rentre pile dans ce qu'on veut faire politiquement avec l'accompagnement des jeunes entreprises innovantes. Donc il faut qu'on élargisse ça pour que personne ne reste en dehors de ce champ-là. Et puis 2, je reviens au sujet des levées de fonds dont je parlais juste avant, et notamment le sujet des ICO. Il y a eu un cadre qui a été posé à l'occasion de la loi Pacte que tu évoquais en 2019, en 2018. C'est une première étape, c'est très bien, mais il y a encore beaucoup de choses à améliorer. Je mentionne un point, c'est qu'avec les ICO, on peut être soumis en même temps à la TVA et à l'impôt sur les sociétés. Ça, il faut qu'on change ça parce que ça rend le système assez peu fiable, assez peu pratique. Et donc, il faut qu'on renforce et qu'on avance sur ce type de sujet. Donc, c'est aussi des sujets qu'on a mis dans le rapport de la mission que j'ai conduite ces derniers mois. Mais c'est 2 exemples tout petits, je dirais, par rapport à l'infinité du travail qu'on va avoir devant nous pour réguler, encadrer, accompagner dans une façon très positive toutes les innovations que vous allez développer, parce qu'on connaît tout ce qui existe, tout ce que vous avez en tête aujourd'hui, mais quand on va se reparler dans quelques années, vous aurez encore beaucoup d'autres idées. Donc voilà, il faut qu'on arrive à développer. Le potentiel, il est gigantesque. Maintenant, on veut que ça se passe en France et en Europe aussi. Et donc, on va accompagner ça. Et nous, notre ambition, je dirais, avec la majorité présidentielle, avec le président de la République, c'est d'accompagner ça le plus facilement possible.
So you might have touched about this already, but what would be the top, advantage of tokenization for the daily life of a company?
This one, honestly, I will let you answer because you will have a much more interesting answer than myself.
Sure.
On my side, what I can say is there are a list of innovation on which we see a huge potential of disruption for many sectors in our economy. That's clear. So I think for now, the general public, the public opinion doesn't get this idea right now. It's you know, a topic that is not well mediatized. You know, so we also have a huge work to do with Adan and with all of you to make every French citizen, every European citizen understanding the potential of what you are doing in this room. But the potential is huge, but I will let the guys that are doing this every day answer your question, I think.
Yeah, maybe everyone can share his views. From my point of view, the first use case of crypto is, of course, investment. So anyone can invest very easily in this new class of assets, and even companies. So for example, a significant number of companies use crypto assets to diversify the management of their treasury, of their funds. So it can help to diversify its exposure to many assets. The second use case is payments, and especially for cross-border payments. Currently, still in the current world, we see a lot of delays to do, especially cross-border payments. When you want to do it, it takes at least 2 days. And when you want to send money during the weekend, the banks are closed, so it's not possible. With crypto, it takes 10 minutes. So this is, of course, a use case very, very important. And in retail payments as well, because more and more people will own crypto, and then they want to own it not only for investment, but also to spend it directly in merchant. And the third use case for me is the tokenization of all finance. It means not only payments, but also the settlement of financial instruments. And the productivity gains of the blockchain technology in this field are really huge. We are just starting to see them, but currently the settlement of financial instruments in traditional finance takes at least 2 days, and it immobilizes collateral to make sure that the transaction is correctly settled. With blockchain, you can do it much more quicker, in question of minutes, and for a much cheaper cost. So it will help all financial institutions to save money. So this is really the use case, but for me, it's a little bit a longer term. There are currently experiments on that, and the European regulation allows it, you know, with a pilot regime, with a regulation on the pilot regime for DLT market infrastructures. But it's just the beginning. And that's why it's important for France and other European countries to not lose the battle of this technology, because it's a race. So if you are in the race, you can compete, but if you are in the behind, not anymore. So we must be in the race and keep the advance with the skilled people that we have.
Did anyone want to add anything for that question?
Tokenization, right? Yeah, I mean, I agree on the last points. I think, you know, the use case of real-world rates, real-world assets coming into blockchain will really unlock traditional finance moving into blockchain. I think right now the most interesting market is actually the stablecoin, right? When you have 120 billion market of stablecoins, so basically dollar, euros, or other currencies representing on-chain, and you might want to yield that these stablecoin with money market fund, European Treasury bonds, US Treasury bonds, and this is coming on-chain. This is being tokenized, and you know, traditional finance companies might take still few years to access that products for clarity reason in terms of regulation everywhere in the world, but at least there's a market for, you know, a retail market that is accessing crypto or USDC or any stablecoin right now that want to get yields. Or there's a market of pure players using Fireblocks or other custodians that have, again, stable coins, in security in these custodians and want to get yield. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then obviously when the pure players will access real world assets through blockchains, then you will have traditional finance players coming into the space and starting to tokenize bonds, equity, more stable coins on chain and slightly replacing the traditional finance ecosystem on the new one, on Web3 on blockchains.
And it would be interesting to hear from you also about what the role of staking is in this ecosystem. Of course, Kiln is it's a staking platform. So what do you think is the role, in tokenization with staking in mind?
Who's familiar with staking here? Raise the hand. There's one person, 2%.
Okay, you're going to have to give us a breakdown.
Yeah, right. So staking is the we call it the risk-free rate in crypto. It's the first reward mechanism in crypto, or the good analogy in traditional finance. It's a government treasury bond, if you will, right? So what staking is that in exchange to lock in your native assets, so let's say Ether, you validate the transaction of the Ethereum blockchain, and in exchange you get a reward that's coming from the inflation of the protocol and network fees. The more people using Ethereum, it's coming back to the stakers. So this being said, it's gives you what, a 5-6% reward today. And it's the first reward mechanism rates that you can find. Then liquid staking is the staked, or the tokenization representation of staking, because when you stake your asset, you're locked. When you tokenize this staking position, you get a liquid staking token, and now you are liquid and you can play it on the rest of DeFi. So liquid staking becomes the first product of DeFi, right? Everything that is lending, decentralized lending, AMM, automated market maker. I don't want to go too deep in the rabbit hole, but like this is on top of liquid staking that is becoming the first DeFi product. Last but not least, again, I see the future of rates, reward mechanism, and tokenization on chain as like a mix of staking, liquid staking, DeFi, and again, real world assets, equity, bonds, or real world rates.
That's a really great explanation. I hope next time everyone raises their hands if they're asked about what staking is. So now that you've explained it a bit, how do you see the next 5 years of staking and its role in the financial industry?
Yeah, I mean, today you have I think 80 billion assets that are stakes, maybe a little bit more. Let's say around 100 billion, because it's, if you compare it to the government bond market, I think it's the government bond market is like 80 trillion, right? So literally 1,000 times more than what it is today. So of course, being closer to the real bond markets for the staking market, as if Ethereum or other proof of stake blockchains are worth trillions, there's high chances that a majority of these value will flow into staking again, because you secure the network and you validate the transaction. And then we'll see a lot of innovation. Staking will be the base layer, and all the rest of DeFi will innovate on top of staking. Yeah, that's how I see the future for staking.
Thank you. And maybe we can turn to you back, Stéphanie. Of course, Binance is a market-dominating exchange in crypto. So I was wondering, what's the role of Binance in the future of tokenization and payments?
Binance has always been a pioneer in this industry, because it was created 6 years ago, and in only 6 months it became the major crypto exchange in the world. So we are trying to always innovate and bring the industry further. In the field of payments, as I said, there is really a demand from that, coming from several parts of the world. In several parts, some parts is really more pregnant, more important. So, for example, in Asia or in South America, there is really a request to have this tokenized payment. So Binance has developed a product which is called Binance Pay, which enables Binance users to pay to merchants directly in crypto. And this is being also developed in Europe. The problem in Europe for payments in crypto is that the regulatory landscape is not as clear as for other crypto assets. So currently there is a modification of the directive, the European directive on payment services. It's called DSPD3. And I hope it will bring more clarity to this regulatory landscape, to be sure on what is the categorization of crypto payments. Currently, because of this uncertainty, I think it's blocking several projects in this field.
Thank you so much. I think we're just running out of time. I got a signal we need to wrap this up, even though we could continue talking about these topics for a very long time. So a big thank you, and I hope to continue hearing from all these projects that you're working on. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.